It is the Beaver Banter podcast. I'm CJ Baumgartner. There is Ian Rivers. Ian, the season finale of Beaver Banter. It's kind of a bittersweet moment. It's good that we've made it to the end of a second year, but after this, we're gonna take a little bit of a break.
Yeah. Summer's off. It's a blessing and a curse. You want to be able to talk about Beaver sports, but it's nice to have a little bit of a 3-month period in there where we're not having to pump out episodes every week. Just get to enjoy the summer, and then we'll be back in mid to late August because we have some schedule news that just recently dropped, and we'll touch on that. But I'm already excited for this fall to come because of obviously dropping the schedules and getting excited to see how we match up with all those teams in every sport. But yeah, it's been a good season, and we'll touch on some of the highlights in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get to the schedule drops for football, women's soccer, men's hockey. All those have been put out, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit. I think we'll wrap this up or start it up by wrapping it up for spring sports. Of course, softball came to a close, and men's and women's golf is out the door. We are waiting on baseball to finish things up. And Ian, they won. They won.
They won 2 games. They tripled
they won twice.
Their win total from this season.
It sounds like we're making fun of them, but like it's just a good way to end the season. At least you feel like you got some, positive. It's not a big deal. Like I'm not trying to make this into something bigger than
going 1-40. Like going 1-49 would have been especially demoralizing. So like at least ignoring the record, you can say, yeah, we won a couple of games there at the end of the year, left on a pretty good note. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Right. Exactly. You're able to just feel like, okay, good. We got a couple more. We ended the season. And not only that, but also it meant that they got 2 wins against Minot State to help out our yearly Beaver battle because each game is a battle.
They clutched up hard because
Beaver
guess
War.
what? The total would have been tied 6-6 had they gotten swept in these games, and we would have had no official Beaver battle winner for the season. Football would have had to play a scrimmage because football, remember, didn't play Minot State this year. Football would have had to play a scrimmage against Minot State for the victory. They would have had to round up Del Duncan Busby, who, by the way, I don't know if we've touched on that since we
have
last
not
talked.
touched on that.
We will touch on that in a second. We would have had to round him up from Canada, get him back here because it would have had to been the same official teams just to figure that out. But yeah, the Bemidji State Beavers win the Beaver battle for the season 8-4 across all sports. Soccer went 2-0, volleyball went 2-0. So fall sports did exceptionally well. I believe both basketball teams went 1-1, split the series with Minot State. And then softball, unfortunately, swept by Minot State, lost 2 games, and baseball clutching up with the big sweep of the Beavers, the Western Beavers, and winning the series 8-4 on the season. So next year, of course, we will be back in the saddle against Minot State in terms of football. But yeah, exciting to win the Beaver battle. I still think they need to find a way to come up with some sort of a traveling trophy that gets handed out after the last baseball or whatever game of the season.
Right. I think we need to figure that out. We need to find the Beaver Banter equivalent in Minot State. So you could call it Beaver Banter or something like that. But it's just a red and white color scheme instead of green and white. And yeah, I think we need to find the Minot State equivalent of our Bemidji State podcast, and we need to get that kind of going.
Right. Start up a little more of a rivalry with Minot State than we currently have, because in all honesty, their hockey team does pretty good at the Division III level. At some point, we've obviously beaten the crap out of the problems with college hockey right now, but at some point, it wouldn't be impossible for them to jump up, I don't think, to the Division I level. So that could be, at some point in the future, even something we could see there. But yeah, to talk about Del Duncan Busby then, he was drafted into the CFL. I can't remember off the top of my head what pick he went. I think he was a third-round pick.
It was the 3rd or 4th round, yeah.
I think it was a 3rd round. I'm going to put my money on it. But yeah, 3rd round pick for Del Duncan Busby, and he's done some stuff. I know that I retweeted something on the Beaver Banter Twitter page. He was zipping around. I think it was the University of Saskatchewan up there. Got drafted by the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, I believe
Yep.
is their team nickname. So
It's like the
congrats
one
to him.
CFL team I know other than the Argonauts.
Yeah, the Toronto Argonauts and man, no, I can't. I can't name anymore. The Montreal Alouettes. That's what I was thinking of. That's
Isn't
another
there
one.
like there's like a Bombers team, isn't there? Like the Blue Bombers? I can't.
There is, and I can't remember where they're from.
It's not Manitoba, is it?
I don't think so, but
Now I'm gonna look this up.
yeah, CFL teams. But yeah, he got drafted in the third round. He gets to play some professional football. That's really cool because he's a Canadian himself. So being able to play up there in a serious, for all intents and purposes, I mean, there's not too many really huge leagues outside of the NFL in terms of football, but that's almost as serious as it comes besides getting to the NFL itself. So I think the UFL is mostly just like NFL practice squad flameouts in terms of where their roster base comes from. So I wouldn't be ashamed of it at all, especially being a native Canadian. That's
really
pretty
cool for
good.
him. Yeah, no, like you talked about, especially for him, he gets to go home and gets to do some of that and gets to play in the CFL, which, obviously if you're comparing it to the NFL, it's not the same, but that league is still fun. That league still, like, people in Canada care about that. It's a really, really cool achievement for him. Looking at the teams in the CFL, there's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers of the
Winnipeg Blue
West
Bombers.
Division. There's
Yep.
the Edmonton Elks, the BC Lions for British Columbia, the Calgary Stampeders,
Calgary. I knew that
Edmonton Elks, and the Saskatchewan Rough Riders.
one.
Those are all in the West.
Yep.
He will be playing Will Dell Duncan Busby at Mosaic Stadium in Regina. Looking at the East Division, the Hamilton Tiger Cats in Ontario, the Montreal Alouettes in Quebec, the Ottawa Red Blacks, and the Toronto Argonauts, all in the East Division up there in Canada. Eh?
Yeah, I think the only one that I am embarrassed that I couldn't pull out was the Calgary Stampeders. Other than that, I've heard of the Hamilton. I can't even remember what it was. It's some sort of cat, right?
Tiger Cats.
Tiger Cats. I've heard of them. I couldn't have pulled Tiger Cats out, but I've seen their uniforms on the, ESPN.
I've seen
Grey
enough like
Cup
top
Twitter.
plays that just somehow, like, it's the
Yeah.
middle of their season. Somebody makes a cool play and just pops up, and you're like, oh, cool.
Exactly.
The thing about Canadian football that screws me up is players can start going forward before the ball is snapped. And the end zones are, like, not only they're huge and they're not rectangles. It's all throwing me off.
Yeah, it's a very confusing thing
Can
to
you have
just
one more
jump
guy on the
straight
field?
into. One more guy? That sounds familiar. I know, don't they only get like 3 downs as well instead of
Yeah.
4? Yeah, it's kind of a mess. So let's start figuring that out, and then we can get some real rules up there. It's a fine league in terms of talent, but the rules might be a little bit iffy. You know what I mean? That's just a little bit out of my pay grade. I probably watched like 2 CFL games to completion, like
The
in my
CFL,
life.
you can have 12 players for each team on the field. American football, it's 11. So 12.
Well, and if you're from where CJ's from, it's 7. So
9.
Oh, it is 9.
9.
Yeah,
South
9
Dakota,
men.
I
Okay.
think, or Texas has like a 6-man, a 7-man. South Dakota has 9-man. Yeah, 9-man. I've been told by some people it's the best football, actually. So
I have no opinion. So I've never actually watched
the thing that's been told to me about diehard 9-man footballers, and I've been told this by multiple people, is that the field is narrower, so it's not as long because there's less people on the field. So they shorten it up a little bit. It's still 100 yards back and forth, but I can't remember the exact yardage, but it's narrower. So the field's not as big, which means it's more up the middle football. It's not a race to the sidelines like in that wimpy 11-man football. You're running to the sidelines. You're running to the sidelines.
Stuff right there.
In 9-man football, you're going right up the gut. You're running the wishbone. You're running the power eye. You're not getting anything fancy. There's no spread here. And if it is, your quarterback's about to die. You are running it up the gut 50 times a game. And I called the state tournament 9-man football game, and legitimately I ran out of stat line for a guy because he got like 50 carries in the game. So yeah, You can have your opinions on 9-man football. I played it. 11-man football's good. Let's just leave it at that. But yeah, no, congratulations to Del Duncan Busby. Obviously a great receiver for the Beavers, and now getting to go up into Canada and to get to play that is awesome. And he still gets to wear green and white. So when you look at it, it's pretty good. And he's been a fan favorite, obviously being from Canada. From the limited interaction I've seen on Rough Riders Twitter, there's like a video of him in the golf cart talking with one of their media guys. Classic interview, sounded really good in that. So no, congratulations to him on getting that achievement. So anything else? Have we exhausted our CFL talk yet, or do we want to talk about if Toronto's gonna repeat as Grey Cup champions?
Yeah, I think they could make the jump again this season. They're looking pretty good this time around. No. Yeah, I don't know. I have no opinions on the CFL, unfortunately, other than the ones that I've given already.
Other than that, we are now Saskatchewan Roughriders fans. That's
yes, 100%
for Del Duncan Busby. So there we go. Okay, speaking of Bemidji State football, we got some schedule talk because it is dropped. Here we go. The Bemidji State football schedule is out, and the biggest thing about it is that there is a non-conference game on the schedule and an odd number of games. So this is from a year ago. Bemidji State had a bye week because they couldn't find anybody to kind of fill that spot. And because Upper Iowa left the NSIC very late, or it was a very sudden announcement, sudden departure. So now Bemidji State has picked up Michigan Tech. So Ian, the Tech rivalry just extends now into football. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready, man. This is going to be kick off the season, August 29th. I think that's another one of those like Thursday evening games. Like
yeah, they typically like to have that. I think it's Thursday because it's like Labor Day weekend. So I think they're like, let's get that game out. Like let's get it out there and just get it done.
Makes total sense to me. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to have a full slate of 11 games last year. We did not have that. So I think that this is a good thing. It didn't end up coming back to bite the Beavers last season, but yeah, I'm very excited for having another a game against a team that football's always been kind of odd. You don't get to experience games against teams outside of your conference unless you get to play in the tournament or in a bowl game. And now Bemidji State, at least Bemidji State, I don't know if other smaller conferences probably get more out of conference games.
There was some non-conference across the NSIC. I think Duluth, UMD played somebody out of conference.
Yeah, last year everybody did except for Bemidji State and maybe one or two other teams. But in terms of the past years, even past that, the conference was just so big. Everybody just played teams in their own conference, at least in the NSIC. So this is exciting to be able to get to play Michigan Tech. I know that they're kind of like mid, even at football, at hockey too, but I think that it's a very winnable game, and it's going to be very interesting because we really don't know what to expect. Like we talked about plenty of times, I think that the football program's in a really good spot. Not just, they lost their quarterback. Now, unless we find somebody that's just as good, we're going to be mediocre again. I don't think that's the case. I think they've built a sustainable, full team here that's going to be able to help carry this program and keep having success. I mean, you watch a lot of the games last season. It wasn't really Brandon Alt that you felt like was playing hero ball, keeping them in a lot of games. Their defense won them some of those games, including a playoff game last season. So I think that this team and this program is set up for success in the future. In terms of the conference schedule, starting with Minnesota State and ending with Augustana is obviously very tough. You hope to be able to take care of all those games in the middle there. That stretch to end the season, just going historically, obviously, we don't know how these teams are going to be this year, but Winona State, Wayne State, MSU Moorhead, who, if you're predicting them to take yet another step this season, and then Augustana to end the year, that's going to be a brutal stretch. So you're going to want to win any games you've got.
Maybe that State's not a slouch either, by the way.
Who's that now?
Winona State. They're not a slouch either.
Right, yeah, Winona State. Like these are all teams that have made or made the playoffs or are Moorhead, who are going to potentially make another huge jump. I mean, the only teams they lost to this last season were teams that made the playoffs, and a lot of those games were close games. So That's a tough stretch, at least on paper. 3 months out, 4 months out from the season so far. But that looks like it could be a very tough stretch. So
Well, and
those,
I think the other thing is too, we talk about how when they play more Mankato, uh, that's on the road. That's going to be a tough one. It's week 2. You're going to come off a non-conference game. Just the vibes will be a little bit different. And then you have to face that game. But you get Southwest, which, historically, that's a game you should win. You play Sioux Falls, never an easy team to beat, but theoretically one that you should be expected to beat. You should win that game. Northern will be tough. And I mean, this is just your normal NSIC schedule, though. The NSIC is a really good football conference. At least those top half of teams all kind of beat each other up a little bit because it's just really, really competitive football. And it has been the last 5-10 years. I mean, looking around at some of these teams, there's over half the games, as we just talked about, and you got to go, well, they got to beat that team. They got to beat that team. And that one could be a toss up. And they don't even have UMD on the schedule this year. There is no Minnesota Duluth game that you're going to play. So that's the other thing. There's not even
no free
UMD.
win there. So that's unfortunate.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's just it's another, I mean, the schedule is they're always going to play these same teams generally. So it's not like, the NFL, we're like, well, this year's a little bit different than it's all the same, just that order. There are no back-to-backs in any home or road games, which is fascinating to me. Sometimes you have back-to-back home games, back-to-back road games, and you kind of go from there. But to kind of go every other all week is fascinating. But I don't know. I mean, we've pretty much exhausted the schedule. There's only so much we can talk about kind of in May.
Right. And we really don't know. Like going in years past, we knew that the offense was going to be at least like top 3 in the conference because of the fact that they had a really high level quarterback. And now you just kind of don't know. I expect their defense to be playing at a pretty similar level to last season's. In terms of offense, we really just don't know. It's going to depend on, is the quarterback that's going to be coming in, or we don't know who they're going to start. Is it going to be McGath? Are they going to lean heavier into the run? I don't know that they had the personnel to do that last season, but you never know. You never know what it's going to look like heading into next year. But we can touch on that some more in August when we maybe have a little bit more detail on what's going to happen with that. But yeah, that's what the schedule looks like. I expect to see Bemidji State up around 8, 9, maybe 10 wins again next season. That's just kind of the program they've built. So I'm excited for it.
Roll damn Beavs, baby. All right, we move on to our next schedule drop, which is the women's soccer team. A couple non-conference games early, St. Benedict, St. Catherine. You have Missouri Western State. You have Drury, Quincy, and non-conference Upper Iowa into the mix here before you get into the meat and potatoes of the NSIC schedule. Ian, what kind of pops out at you about the women's soccer schedule here?
Rematch against Missouri Western State, this time in Bemidji. Last year, you played that game in St. Joseph to open the season. And I guess technically it is opening the season because there's 2 scrimmages.
I guess, yeah, they count as exhibitions. Yeah.
So I'm not sure whether or not those will count towards the record. But yeah, this time it's in Bemidji. And then you have to go to Fayette, Iowa to play against Quincy and Upper Iowa. It's cool to see Upper Iowa on the schedule. I'm not really frightened by them. I don't really have a huge opinion on many of these teams because I don't know what they're going to look like. I think that's something we talked about last year. But something that is kind of cool is that we'll get to watch Missouri Western this year because it'll be on NSIC Network rather than behind a paywall for whatever conference they play for. I can't remember, but
the toilet conference.
Yeah, something like that. But again, soccer's right up there with football. One of the more consistent programs we've had over the last pulling up on a decade now. I mean, it's not been quite that long, but it's been a sustained run of 7, 8 years at this point. They're making not only the NSIC tournament, but the national tournament as well. So again, not a whole lot to say about the schedule. I expect to be kind of the same usual suspects at the top of the league. And we'll see if they can three-peat their NSIC tournament victory and maybe this year even pull in a regular season championship to match it.
Yeah, getting both of them at the same time would be really cool. It'd be really fascinating to see how the end of the season goes. Obviously, some tough teams with Minnesota State, Concordia, St. Paul, and UMD to end the season. Raising your play at the end of the year, that'll kind of be the fun part as we get towards that season. And now that I said that, all those three teams are going to be bad, and it's going to be Upper Iowa that's going to be super good, and it's going to be just completely throwing me off because I did the old announcer's jinx. All right, let's move on to the last schedule we have to talk about. And this was one that's been highly anticipated, especially since the BSU men's hockey team got eliminated from the Mason Cup championship game. Here we go. The schedule drops. You open the season in Duluth on October 5th. That's when things get kicked off. Then you have a home and home with St. Cloud State. Then you go to Ferris to kick off league play the Mavs. You go to Augustana for the first time in program history, a home and home with the Gophers, pretty big. St. Thomas, you'll play them at the Sanford Center, a home and home with UND. Then you play Lake State on the road. Then you have two home series in a row you have a home series, I should say, against Michigan Tech, and then a home game against Minnesota Duluth on New Year's Eve. Then you play Bowling Green in a series in January, Northern Michigan at home, go to St. Thomas, home against Ferris State, go to Michigan Tech for a rematch over out there this time. And then you wrap up the season with the series at the Sanford Center against Bowling Green. And this time, Ian, the final series of the season will be in Mankato instead of at the Sanford Center, but you're still playing the Mavs. What is your breakdown of the Bemidji State men's hockey schedule?
Well, I have a couple notes. The first one is if you're watching this on the Twitter live stream or if you're watching it on Facebook or anywhere, pay close attention to the players that they use for this graphic. They did that intentionally, as Jared Roboto pointed out in his tweets a couple of days ago when they actually dropped this. We got official confirmation.
Bemidji Pioneer.
What did I say?
No, you didn't say anything. I'm just giving you credit.
Okay. You're just okay. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good.
They used the three senior forwards on purpose. They are all coming back. It is officially confirmed. Judding, Martin, and Jopi all coming back for their fifth season. So the offense, like we said, that forward room is going to be jam-packed with talent next season. And that's exciting. In terms of actual games on the schedule, very interesting to see a split series with Minnesota Duluth. It's not very interesting to see a home and home. That's pretty common, but a home and home split between October 5th and December 31st is the very interesting part there. But New Year's Eve game in Bemidji in the Sanford Center, that should be pretty exciting. The rest of the non-conference, I mean, resident sleeper, I'm pretty bored. It's the same suspects. I understand why they do it. Lucas, I think, brought up of Beaver Territory, brought up a very interesting point that the furthest out of conference game that they have to play is closer than the closest in conference game that they have to play this year. It is closer to go to the U of M and
Grand Forks.
Grand Forks, that's what I was thinking of. I was thinking Sioux Falls for some reason. I guess Sioux Falls is technically still like out of conference, so maybe that just is counted as a conference game. But so that's very interesting. So I understand why they do it for travel purposes, and it's what gets people in the building, and it's home and homes. They're very fun. It's a unique part of college hockey. And I am very excited for that University of Minnesota series. My mom found it already, and she is already making plans to do the Minnesota game on Thursday night and then drive up to Bemidji for the weekend for the Beavers game. She's a big Gophers fan, so there will be some beef there that weekend, but I do plan on making that trip myself. Otherwise it's pretty standard stuff. I believe the series in Michigan Tech is during the Tech Winter Carnival. I have no official confirmation, but that's just what I've heard from around the grapevine. That would be very interesting because obviously that's a huge thing for Michigan Tech up there. They get really into it. They play for a cute little fake trophy that doesn't matter to anybody but them. So it'll be awesome taking that from them and taking 6 points from the weekend.
It'll be awesome taking it and just kind of forgetting it and leaving
just taking it and then leaving it on the rink after the game because it's meaningless and nobody cares. Speaking of Tech, by the way, Austin Swankler officially, I swear to God, this might be the last time we talk about him on the show. He is officially transferred to a Division III university. Okay. I can't remember what the name of it is, but it is hilarious to me to see the downfall of this guy. I mean, I I guess like I don't know. I haven't been 100% glued into like everything that he's done or said. Like I know what he's done, like stealing the shoes from the locker room and transferring out. Like there's a bunch of rumors going around that I'm just not even going to touch on, but it's crazy to like interact with his, I believe, dad on Twitter, and then all this stuff about him winning the Hobie, and then all of a sudden he's playing hockey at Division III university because he wants to, you know, find somewhere that he can not only play hockey but also further his education. When the rumor that's going around is that he failed like every class at Tech this last semester. But again, that's just a rumor. I think
It's just a
I
rumor. He doesn't want to
cannot
monger
confirm.
them. But if you just wanna like here, take a little bit
Right?
for
Yeah,
your
I don't know,
consumption.
man.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, man, it's tough for him to have to go through that because obviously that guy comes in there thinking he's gonna be pretty good, and then you kind of get thrown like it's a situation of his own making,
Well, I think a
obviously.
lot of people like disliked him from the start for no reason at all because an intern screwed up his paperwork, and so now he is playing college hockey when I think he shouldn't have had any eligibility or less eligibility than he should have. Like, and then he goes to the Vegas Golden Knights development camp, gets kicked out, and
Oh,
now
I
he's
didn't
playing
know
in
that
Division III.
actually.
Yeah, oh yeah, he played, and his it's crazy. His TikTok page, somebody stumbled across it one day, and his profile picture was a like picture of him like with the Vegas Golden Knights stuff on. It's like that's an interesting choice when they literally kicked you out of their development camp, but yeah, so it didn't turn out quite the same way that it did for Leighton Road when he went to Seattle's development camp and then signed a pro contract with them. Uh, Austin Swankler, instead of signing a pro contract, is now playing Division III hockey. But enough about Swankler.
Anyway,
Uh,
it's we can finally put that one to bed.
yeah, the hockey schedule is the most important thing there, and yeah, I mean it's pretty straightforward. Like we kind of talked about with football, it's the same usual suspects. The conference opponents, I think it is Northern Michigan and Lake Superior State that we only play once this year. Last year it was Bowling Green. I think we didn't travel to Bowling Green, and then I
Yeah,
can't
that
remember who the
sounds right.
second team was that we only played once. I think it was actually it wasn't. I'm not going to sit here and try to mull it over in my mind, but it might have been Northern Michigan last year too, because I don't think that they played us in Bemidji. We went to
No,
Marquette, and then we
yeah,
played
yeah. I
Bowling
don't think
Green in Bemidji. We didn't go to Bowling Green.
yes.
Anyways, yeah, Minnesota is like kind of the biggest thing on here, as like we haven't played them since 2014 in like an official game that counts for anything.
Right.
Played a couple of exhibitions against them, but now it's
One
for
last
real.
year didn't
So
typically go too well.
dude, it's kind of a gauntlet off of a schedule. I mean, if you're assuming that Minnesota Duluth is going to take a step up and not be a dog crap like they were this year, I mean, they still finished ahead of Bemidji in terms of pairwise, but I think if you play those games at the end of the season, Bemidji has a decent chance of probably sweeping them. Maybe
Mhm.
not, but it's St. Cloud State. At the beginning of the year, at least, they might be, I don't know, they might be a little underrated just because they finished the season so poorly. And so maybe they won't be like a top 10 team like they normally are at the start of the season, but you never know. And then Minnesota and North Dakota, both teams that made the tournament, both teams that, uh, well, no, North Dakota lost to Michigan in the first game. So not both teams that won conference games, but yeah, I mean, again, it's the same usual suspects. You can't really break it down too much based off of, oh, we're playing all these different teams, so we really don't know how we're going to stack up. But it's interesting to see when things line up. I think the bye weeks are a little bit more manageable this year. Obviously, this last year, the bye weeks really helped us get healthy, right? So that was, you look at it at the beginning of the year and you're like, holy crap, we only play like one game in January. What the heck is up with that? That's so stupid. Like, we're going to get rusty. And it ended up working out for us this year because we needed that time to get healthy and get right. And then we went on this huge winning streak afterwards.
Right.
This year, it's a little bit more spread out. I like that a little bit more in terms of a fan perspective. You have a game against Duluth, you have the series against St. Cloud State, then you got a weekend off. You keep playing all the way through November, then you play December 14th, you get a week off, you play against Minnesota Duluth again. Then you get another week off and you play more games in January than you did last year. it's a much better way to break up the schedule. You got to buy in mid-February this year, which is nice, kind of towards the end of the season. It's just a little bit more spread out. I think it's easier to look at it like that than it is to say, yeah, 3 of our 4 bye weeks are all in January. Like, have fun. Like, wow, that's so unfair, but it worked out for them last year, and I hope that they can continue to put some good product on the ice. I'm pretty excited. I think they have a really good chance, even if it's, at the very least, even if the CCHA is terrible again outside of the conference, I think that this team absolutely has what it takes to stay at the top of the CCHA and contend for more hardware.
We don't want the McNaughton Cup going anywhere. That's
right. It's
pretty
staying.
much, and there's no reason to think it will. There's no reason to think it'll leave. So there you go. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to look towards next year and to think of all those series that we can break down and get ready for. And it's just going to be a really great time once that next hockey season does come around. This kind of gets us to the last part. We've wrapped up spring sports. We've wrapped up the Beaver War, the Beaver Battle. And now we've talked about the schedules dropping. We're all caught up on Beaver sports unless some ginormous news drops on July 8th. We're sitting here getting ready to take our break. But before we go, Ian and I wanted to go through our top 3 moments throughout this year. We could call it the Beaver Banter season. We'll just call it for this school year. Kind of what were your top moments? We'll kind of go back and forth. Ian, what was your number 1? In no particular order, I should say.
Yeah, no particular order. My number 1 that I've got to bring up has got to be fall sports. It's soccer, clinging to the jaw, like their season is on the line, right? It's the NSIC tournament quarterfinals. They are on the ropes against Augustana. They're at home. I think they were the 4 seed in this tournament. And they're about to lose. There's 3.5 minutes left in the game. And I truly believe that they would not have been a tournament team had they lost this game to Augustana. Kenzie she scored the game winner. Lauren Hodney, with 3.5 minutes left to go in the game, pulls a lifeline out of nowhere for BSU, scores a goal. And this is not regular soccer, right? Once the 90 minutes is up, it's up. There's no added time. So there was literally 3.5 minutes left of your season. If you're a senior, you're done after that. And they pull it out, extend the game. And in the second overtime period, Kenzie Harris scores with like 5 minutes to go in the game, I believe. And Bemidji State wins it. They move on to the semifinals. They beat St. Cloud State for the second time this past season and advance to the championship, beat UMary 2-0 to repeat as NSIC tournament champions. And then they, of course, get the automatic qualifier, and they're the 7 seed in the NCAA Central Regional. And they beat St. Cloud State again for the 3rd time. And then, of course, unfortunately, their season ended at the hands of Emporia State, or at the feet, I should say, in terms of soccer. But I was watching that tournament at work on my phone, and I'm like, man, this stinks, man. We're used to a different breed of soccer from this team. Like, this is not what we've expected. It's been a little bit of a down year. And I think for them, honestly, finishing 4th was a bit of a down year. But just to be able to pull that out of nowhere, get a goal, 3.5 minutes left in your season, and extend it for 5 more games or 4 more after the Augustana game was awesome. And adding yet another NSIC tournament title. I guess actually it's only their second, because I think last year was the first year they won it, but adding another one to their trophy cabinet is awesome.
Right. It's just a huge moment. I remember watching that on my phone too, like in that game, like, oh my gosh, their season's going to end. And I turn around and all of a sudden they tied it up and we're winning. And like, it was crazy. Like the way that game just turned on its head completely was awesome. So it was really fun to see that. My first moment that I want to talk about, we're going to go all the way to winter sports again. We're going to talk about the men's hockey team and that game in the second round of the Mason Cup playoffs against Lake State. You got through the first round. It's a little dicey against Ferris, but you got through, and there was there was a buzz at the Sanford Center walking in. I drove up from home for the game that day, and just walking into the arena, I was like, there's a buzz here. Like there is everybody's kind of ready. I thought maybe there'd be some nervous energy with how the weekend before turned out, but everybody was behind the Beavers and they jumped out to an early lead and just ended up beating the brakes off of Lake State. And it was just a super fun game to be at. And my first Bemidji State hockey game that I saw in person in years. And it was a great way to get me back in because I already can't wait for next hockey season to come back and to get to do that. So that was one of my favorite moments of the year.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I was at the weekend after that, and that's going to be point number 2 for me. But yeah, the atmosphere at all of these playoff games and towards the end of the season at every hockey game was awesome. But I'm going to expand my second point from even when we talked about it pre-show. And I'm going to say almost every hockey game that I went to this last season, man.
Yeah, you
Because
got a good one.
honestly, all 6 of them were phenomenal hockey games in terms of at least there was something at them to watch. So I went to the preseason tournament, season opening tournament, the Icebreaker. The first game against Wisconsin, it's Mike Hastings' first game in charge. Actually, no, I think they played Augustana the weekend before. But first game, he's back in the Sanford Center, a building he's familiar with. And it's a 4-3 overtime loss to Wisconsin, who at the time we were disappointed to lose to. They ended up turning into a tournament team. So it was like, okay, maybe it wasn't that bad. But seeing Matthias Scholl stand on his head and make 63 saves or 61 saves out of his mind, like one of the best goalie performances I've ever seen. His defense was leaving him out to dry. Thank God they picked it up towards the end of the season, because if it would have been like that all season long on the defensive end, it would have been pretty tough to watch. But that game was super fun. The next game against Army, overtime game winner by Leighton Road. You were a little disappointed to go to overtime against Army, but it's always fun seeing an overtime game winner. Doesn't matter the opponent. Game 3 that I was at was the insane Michigan Tech 6-4 comeback in the Sanford Center. This team should have been down and out. They just got the brakes beaten off of them the night before. They're down 0-4 in a virtually empty building with a lot of Tech fans there behind the glass. And in just 25 minutes, they complete a comeback with Eric Polkamp, I believe on his dad's birthday, scoring a game-winning goal. I don't know if it was Eric's birthday or his dad's. I think it was his dad's. I know his dad was in attendance and scores the game winner to go up 6-4, the final score of that game. What a comeback it was. I wish that the building would have been a little more full because it would have been such an awesome environment. But then you fast forward, of course, to the McNaughton Cup games. The 6-0 victory was awesome. Or was it 5-0? I think it was 6-0 over Mankato that first night, right? Either way, it was awesome, dude. That was one of the most fun games I've ever been at. And then the next night was almost equally as cool. Enright gets a shutout to kind of end his Bemidji State career. They have nothing to play for, essentially, and they still shut out Mankato on home ice. That was awesome. And then, of course, the loss in the Mason Cup championship game. But like I said before, I had a 7-hour drive round trip. I had to work at 8 a.m. the next day. Thank God I pushed my schedule back from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. just so I could go to this game. And I got back home at about 1 a.m., went to bed, and they lost. So it was a huge disappointment, right? No, I would do it again in a heartbeat because the atmosphere in that building was awesome. And it's what I've literally dreamed of to have at Bemidji State for hockey games. And I know that not every game in the regular season is going to be like that, but we need to replicate that more often, Bemidji, because that was super fun, even in the loss. The only regret is that, of course, they conceded a goal so quickly after they went up. I would have loved to be able to be in that arena with the lead for a couple minutes and just kind of experience what that was like with the energy. But other than that, that whole, every hockey game that I went to this year was kind of a banger. And I'm very fortunate for that.
You set the bar too high. I mean, next season they're gonna win every game, and they're gonna win 3-0. You'll be like, yeah, it was fine, I guess, but it was
where's the drama?
Yeah, exactly. It gets the people going. It's provocative, exactly. I don't understand. But yeah, I mean, it was a really fun year of games at the Sanford Center, really entertaining. And you picked a good string of them, which gets me, it kind of piggybacks into my next point, which is the homecoming football game, which me and my wife went to We drove up there, spent the weekend in Bemidji. It was really fun. And just getting to go to that playoff, or not playoff, but homecoming game against Mankato's, against the team that you knew you could beat. Even though Bemidji State didn't win, it was such a good game. And it was, I'd never seen, and I've seen 4 years of Bemidji State football at every home game. I have never seen the Chet that popping for that homecoming game. It was a great atmosphere. It took me like 45 minutes to wait in line to get a bottle of Coke and a popcorn because it was just so full. It was such a great atmosphere. And if we would have won, it would have been insane, but we didn't. But it was still great. It was still awesome to get to be in that spot. And I worked in the media relations, so I didn't get to like go to football games. I was always in the bleacher, or I was never in the bleachers. I was always in the press box doing stats. That was the first time I actually get to sit just as a spectator and watch a live Bemidji State football game. It was fun. It was really, really great to see. And just to be back in that moment, again, it makes me want to go do it again because that was awesome. And obviously not every game, you're playing a team in Mankato that's good. It's a rivalry. It's homecoming. It was a nice day out. You're not going to get that every single week, but also just having an atmosphere like that makes you want more of it every single week that you can do it. So great job, Bemidji, on some of this stuff. And let's keep it going because, I mean, it should be another fun year.
Yeah. Yeah. I regretfully could not get up to that homecoming game, but it was awesome to be able to see the stands stay for the whole game. And of course, that probably had to do with the fact that it was a huge game with huge
Bemidji State
implications.
wasn't winning by 40 at halftime.
Weren't winning by 40 at halftime, but normally during homecoming games, that airs out pretty quick at about halftime. Is when a lot of the people end up leaving, especially from the student section, because they have other things to do with their evening. But
like what, Ian?
I don't know. There's usually some board games that are played that night. I know it's a big game for the board game people.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, CJ, why don't you give your third point because mine kind of piggybacks off of yours.
Okay, so my third point was just shouting out the football guys coming on the podcast, whether it was former offensive assistant coach Jordan Hine, or whether it was, I know we had Bryce Peters come on the show. We had Marcus Hansen come on the show. I was blanking on his first name. And just those guys coming on the show and being willing to talk and being willing just to talk about Bemidji State stuff and give us a little insight onto what they're doing was really, really fun. And getting to do that live show at the selection show was just really fun. So props to the football guys for inviting us. Props to the football guys for wanting to come on. That's coverage that when we started this podcast, we're like, do you think we could actually do this? And to have that happen and those guys be not just willing to do it, but like super amped up to come on and talk and whatever, like those are conversations that I've interviewed athletes before. Like you can be done with the conversation in 5 minutes if they're not into it. And we talked for over half an hour both times. And including when we had Coach Hine on there as well. So it was really awesome to have that kind of come together. And we really appreciate those guys for stepping up. And we even got to interview Coach Bolte at the selection show. And that was a really fun conversation as well. It's just a really cool thing to get up there and to cover those guys, because that's what we want to do is spotlight when Bemidji State sports is doing something awesome. And that team was last year.
Yeah, and the individual athletes as well. Like if you want to get on and tell your story and talk about yourself and your journey and the team that you're on and the community that you're trying to build, that's absolutely something that we love doing and we love giving the opportunity to do. And I think that the point that we were kind of both had in mind was that opportunity to go up and watch the selection show with the team and then talk to Coach Bolte afterwards. That was awesome. And then my third point is piggybacking off of that a little bit, is them going to the dance again and doubling down, no, tripling down on winning a playoff game for the third straight season. That's important. And I think that it got kind of overshadowed at the time. My personal expectations for the team heading into this season may have been set a little bit too high. I was kind of hoping that this season they would pull out one of those games against Minnesota State or Augustana and make their impact go like 10-1 in the regular season and win a couple more playoff games. And I think even when it would have been 9-1 this year, correct. But getting to the playoffs again, winning a game. And then, of course, you're a little bit disappointed because you're at home. You felt like they could have won that game against, I think it was Western Colorado. But
Yeah,
that doesn't
that 10-minute drive
diminish the
in the fourth
fact that
quarter.
they had another 9-win season after going 8-2 in the regular season. They won 9 games again this season.
You got a home playoff game.
They got a home playoff game, circumstantial a little bit, but we take those, for the second straight year, they're playing playoff football at the Chet. That is a huge step for building your program. And now without Brandon Alt, we get to see if those steps are true or if it has really been having this godsend of a quarterback that's been helping you mutter your offense along. Like I said, I think the defense has been phenomenal. 2 years ago, when we made the playoffs the first time and we had to beat Augustana in a shootout because our defense was giving up like 30-some points a game. This is not the same defense anymore. This defense has a bunch of dogs on it. We talked to one of them in Marcus Hansen, and I think that this program is set.
The defensive player of the year.
Yes, I think this team is set. This program is in a good spot to be competitors every single season, even without a guy like Alt calling the shots. So that going again and winning another playoff game for the third straight year is probably my third best point for Bemidji State sports this year.
And with that, I think that's it. Ian, is there anything else that you want to get off your chest before we break for the summer?
Just a huge shout out to everybody that made what we do possible this year. Obviously, it's us, we make it possible because we sit here and do it. But like everybody that joined the Discord, everybody that talked to us this year, Jared especially was a great resource and he's a great guy to talk to. Lucas, of course, coming on 4 or 5 times, especially with how good hockey was doing at the end of the season. It's awesome being able to have a small community now that we hope can grow. And that's what I hope that the Discord can do. And it's already picked up a little steam. You got people excited when the schedules drop. They're talking about them. Everybody's having good conversations. So if you haven't joined the Discord already, go and do that. We'll still pump it this summer and kind of try to push it out there. But you won't hear it from our mouths quite as much because we won't be doing any of this show. But yeah, just a huge shout out to everybody that interacted with us from the football team. We want to do more with that, with more of the programs even next year. But yeah, just that's my main point I want to leave on for the year. Is just a huge shout out to everybody in the Bemidji community that made this possible.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody hopping on. Like Ian talked about, we're going to be here. If 0 people listened, we were still going to be talking about Bemidji State sports. But the fact that everybody wants to be along for this ride and get to enjoy this, and we all get to enjoy each other. Last year, we built a little community of Bemidji State followers, and we've just only been adding to it throughout this school year and to get to build off what we've done. And we appreciate everybody who's jumping onto the Discord. It's really, really cool. When we started the Beaver Banter podcast, we just wanted to make a place where people could talk about Bemidji State sports, because every time something cool would happen, my thing, and this is kind of always what I come back to, is when Bemidji State had that crazy overtime game in the Mason Cup Championship in Mankato, and the goal was called back, and it was pandemonium. All I really wanted was somewhere to go to, like, what the heck is going on, and to talk about it and find other people who wanted to talk about it. And there was no real space for that in Bemidji State. At least maybe not one that's like on the internet and connective. And
right, I know it's not centralized. Like you would have had to just post it on Twitter or something and hope, or Reddit, and hope that somebody else that shared your experience with BSU was able to talk. Like I had nobody. I'm at my birthday party. That was on my birthday. And I'm like, we're out to dinner. There's like 12 of us. Maybe 2 of us there have any interest at all in sports. Like I'm like, who is going to understand like what I'm going through right now? The game is being restarted. Like, what are you talking? So I'm on the phone with the one buddy I have from like Mankato, unfortunately. And I'm like, what's going on? Are you kidding? Like we're still alive. And so, yeah, that's a huge thing I think that you brought up, is just having a place to go to talk to other people that are passionate about Bemidji State athletics. That's such a fun thing to be able to have people that share your experiences and your, passions for BSU athletics. It's been fun. It's made this sports year. It made this hockey season, especially like football and soccer in the playoffs. that was kind of when we started to get it going behind the scenes. And then hockey, again, it was still behind the scenes, but having a small community of us already built up was super fun. It made it so much more enjoyable. That 6-4 comeback was like everybody's freaking out, and you get to share that like excitement with other people. So that's my endorsement for the Discord. Next year, you too will get to experience it if you just click that link and join the Discord server.
It's been great. So we appreciate everybody who's hopped on. Ian, another good year. I think overall. I know that we're gonna have like a post-production meeting about how the season went, but I think on the mic, I think it's been good. And I think that this podcast, selfishly, I think, or maybe braggingly, I think it's only gotten better. And I think that we've just been able to keep building, and the things that we've been able to do have been really, really great. And for those who don't know, Ian's done a really good job of like, whenever we've had a guest lined up, Ian's always been the one who's like gone out and gotten those people and like reached out and talked. So he's been really good about that and setting up the Discord. Him and Lucas of Beaver Territory did a lot of work in that. It's awesome. And hey, he's right there. There he is. He's right there. We got Lucas to comment in on the chat. So there you go. And big
shout out to Lucas, by the way, because it says Beaver Banter Discord, but he's got such a huge part of it, and it's really just a Beaver community Discord. I just didn't know what to call it other than Beaver Banter, because it is a place to banter about Beaver sports. So that's kind of what I just ended up calling it, but it's really just a Beaver sports community Discord, because he's got a huge part in it, and so does everybody else that's ever joined it. You guys have just as big a part in it. And to thank CJ for what he does, everything that you see technically when he's pulling up these tweets, I don't know how to do that. And he's the one that runs all the technical side of it. Well, okay, settle down. But like all this technical stuff that he's finding out, he's kind of done the work behind the scenes from the production standpoint. Like he said, I'll kind of go out and try to do my part in. I want to make sure that I'm watching games and making sure. I know that he's a little bit busier during like game times than I am, just with the job that he's got. So I make sure that I try to watch as many games as I can, just to make sure we've got somebody with eyes on it, because I know it can get busy. But I think that we both pull our weight around here at least decently well. And I would hope that if I didn't, you would bring it up. But that's, of course, maybe something for an off the air meeting.
Oh, just wait. I got my notes in the post-production.
Exactly.
Meeting. I think we both have put it together and had a really good podcast. Also, by the way, if you ever see a podcast that's delayed in getting posted, just yell at me on Twitter. It's probably my fault. I probably did something wrong. It's happened a couple times this year, so I apologize for that. But overall, it's been a good year, and I think we could keep talking about this for a while, but we're just really grateful for the community that we got on here, and we'll look to do it again. So don't go anywhere. Stay subscribed to the Beaver Banter podcast. If something crazy happens, we'll maybe hop back on, but Ian will still try and keep the Twitter page active, and I'll try and keep it active when certain things allow. But you guys are awesome. This is Beaver Banter. We'll see you guys in August.